Story 1. When my father, while drunk, decided to punish me for a lie my sister told. His way of ensuring that the oldest, which was me, made sure none of us lied again. That punishment involved him whipping me with a belt, and when he was done, he burned my hand on a stove burner when it was red hot. Once he was sober, he realized what he did and locked me in the basement with no food, water, or bathroom for 2 days. After that, I was rescued by the police and spent 3 months in a hospital having reconstructive surgeries. I still have a very visible scar from what he did. He was charged and convicted of child abuse. An event like that will change anyone. Story 2. I was very depressed. The only thing keeping me from harming myself was thinking about what that would do to my mom. One night, my roommates were using hallucinogens, and I thought, why not? I had a great night, and although it didn't eliminate my depression, it helped me begin the process of recovery. I started really thinking through what was bothering me and addressing my thought processes. This led me to return to school and earn a second degree that I actually enjoyed, unlike the first one. Now, I am doing much better. The depression still lingers in the back of my mind, but I haven't felt suicidal in years. Story 3. Being trapped in the California wildfires completely shifted my perspective on emergency preparedness. Story 4. My city was completely destroyed because of the war, and many friends and acquaintances died. This forever and irrevocably changed my life. Never support any war in any form. Story 5. When I was a teenager, one of my chores was to get the mail. One day, the mailman accidentally left the neighbor's magazine in our mail slot. It was in an all-black plastic sleeve, so I had no idea what it was. In the late 1990s, magazines were the coolest thing. They were like social media, so I thought, whatever magazine it is, I'm keeping it. I went to my room, opened it, and to my surprise, it was a Playboy magazine. I had only heard about these or seen a ripped-up page some other kid took from his dad's collection. There I was with my own copy. Story 6. In 2022, I was arrested for a crime I didn't commit. In 2023, I proved my innocence and had all charges dropped. In 2024, I paid off my house and became debt-free. By 2025, I found myself in the best position I have ever been in life. Before these events, I was merely going through the motions and not fully appreciating life. My experience taught me how much worse things can become. I no longer take life for granted. Story 7. Providing medical assistance in a mass casualty situation to victims of the 2004 tsunami when I was 18 years old. Story 8. Losing my mother at 13 and seeing her lying in the hospital bed was devastating. I remember feeling an overwhelming desire to escape my pain. Story 9. Getting completely overwhelmed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu by a much younger woman who was half my weight changed my perspective. From that day forward, I wanted to have the ability to do that to someone. Since that moment, I have been passionate about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This was 8 years ago, and it feels like yesterday. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has profoundly transformed my life. Story 10. I gave birth to our daughter, and my husband was diagnosed with brain cancer. He died when she had just turned 3. He deserved to be here to see her. He deserved so much in his life, and I am so sad that it has been taken from him and from us. Story 11. Adopted at birth. My adoptive mother passed away when I was 13. My adoptive father remarried. I immigrated twice. I went through multiple heartbreaks, was cheated on, and was left behind in another country. I became a single parent the day I found out I was pregnant and a special needs parent. I met someone when my child was 3. We were married for 5 years until he cheated, and then I got divorced. Parental bullying persisted for 26 years until I went no contact with them. I found my biological family and met all of them. My entire adoptive family immigrated within 6 months of each other. I was diagnosed as autistic at 47. It has been a lot. Story 12. I decided to go for a run 12 years ago. An intoxicated driver put me into an 11-and-a-half-day coma in the intensive care unit. I suffered a traumatic brain injury along with a broken sternum, skull, and shoulder. I have not been able to taste or smell anything in over 12 years. This incident disrupted the momentum of my life up until that point, causing additional stress and heartache. Story 13. When my father molested me. My first time at the controls of an army helicopter. My wedding to my first wife. The birth of all my children. Leaving my first wife. The most recent. My mother's death just over a month ago. Story 14. I found out that my wife was cheating on Thanksgiving Day, no less. I then learned she put a gun to my head and almost shot me in my sleep. Needless to say, I vet my partners a little better now. Story 15. Having 3 older brothers and a younger sister, I was raised by my widowed mother after our father died when we were young. My brothers, along with my mother, were very supportive in our upbringing. This reflects how important family is in growing up to be a responsible adult. Story 16. I was ripped off by a contractor and lost almost $55,000. He was falsely vetted. I was new in town and didn't know anyone. He had a friendly demeanor. What no one knew, including me, was that he was involved in drug trafficking and was using his contracting business as a front. I fought him in court, but it was a waste of time. In total, he scammed several people out of $1.8 million and was prosecuted by the district attorney. They found him guilty of drug trafficking, but he also declared bankruptcy, so he never had to pay me back for civil charges. At least he spent 1.8 years in prison. That is my only small sense of justice. This experience has forever changed how I trust people. Summary. I was ripped off by a contractor and lost a significant amount of money, which changed my perspective on trust. Story 17. I found a deceased baby during a hike inside a black tote box, double-bagged and tied in plastic bags. Story 18. The death of my father in 2002 and my mother in 2017 marked significant moments in my life. On February 27, 2024, at around 10 a.m., I stepped out of the Decamarked Food Distribution Center, which had been my second home for over 33 years. This was my last day there, and I felt a sense of freedom as I began a new chapter in my life, one in which I no longer have to work. Story 19. At 25, I quit an office accounting job in Ohio and moved to Alaska. It was life-changing, the best thing ever. Within weeks, I became a tour guide, driving inflatable Zodiac boats around the ocean, watching whales, feeding bald eagles, and having a blast while making more money. I spent the next 6 years traveling the world in the winters and working in Alaska during the summers. I met my now wife in New Zealand, and now I have 2 kids. Moving to Alaska taught me that you can just do things. With one $325 plane ticket to Alaska, 1 week later, my entire life was more amazing than I ever imagined it could be, and I had a pretty decent life before that. Story 20. I hope it's fine to pick a few. I am 22 years old, and from ages 17 to 22 I have battled intense health issues, deep depression, and a sense of never belonging here on this earth. So, I hope I am welcome to whatever comes next. I have also never had a girlfriend or been attracted to a woman, and it has shaped my mind more than I wish it could have. Many things have changed my paths in life forever. I hope one day it will all just be a dream. Story 21. I was sexually abused from ages 4 to 6 by a family friend. The thing is, I didn't have the vocabulary or understanding to communicate what was happening. There are classic signs that a child is being abused, and I exhibited them all. My parents didn't have the emotional skills to be sympathetic while I showed signs of trauma, such as chronic panic and bedwetting. Now, as an adult, when I experience intense emotions and am met with silence or muted reactions, a core wound is activated, and I interpret it as rejection or disgust, similar to my experiences with my parents. This has ruined a few relationships that I believed could develop into lasting loves. Story 22. My baby daughter has been born. She is only 3 weeks old, but my life has changed forever. I went from not wanting children to loving every second of this new journey. Story 23. I do not mean to exaggerate this. I mean it genuinely. Donald Trump threatened to annex Canada, my country. My opinion of America and Americans changed instantly, and all neutrality disappeared. Everything I bought was being evaluated through a lens of whether or not it was American. I suddenly went from feeling relatively safe and secure to being nervous about sharing the world's largest border with a country that is prone to violent mood swings every 4 to 8 years. I will never trust the United States again and will probably become hesitant about making friends or connections with Americans in general. An innate trust that was always there was shattered. I just never realized it existed until that moment, and now the United States feels like a country we are essentially at war with. Story 24. A long-distance relationship I had for a year ended, sending me down a path of self-reflection. It was a difficult time for me, and I spent 3 years grieving over it. While some may consider such relationships not real, this experience became transformative. It forced me to confront my shortcomings and recognize how I had been flawed. Ultimately, I turned my life and relationships around as a result. Story 25. Seeing my grandmother on her deathbed in the hospital was a profound experience. She lived a long life, but after suffering a heart attack in her 50s, she was essentially bedridden for 30 years. She passed away in February this year, and I visited her about a week before her death. I had been heavily abusing alcohol for about 10 years, and seeing that look in her eyes towards the end made me realize that I never wanted the people around me to witness my slow decline. So I stopped drinking. Story 26. A lot of things, really. I can't pick just one. The forced army draft, my mother was murdered, I developed epilepsy, my father became diabetic, and I experienced numerous head injuries. I confronted violence and witnessed my deceased mother. Story 27. Not one, but multiple moments. Parents' divorce, narcissistic parental abuse, debilitating social anxiety in adolescence and early adulthood. No friends for years, with some experiences of bullying. Attended college but dropped out after 4 months to pursue my design career, which currently earns about $150,000 per year while working remotely. Rode my bike nearly every day for 7 years, experiencing true freedom for the first time and logging 85,000 kilometers. My mother suffers from depression and alcoholism, which led to multiple hospitalizations in a psychiatric facility. Spent a few months living alone on an island, biking everywhere without a car. Bought my first apartment in cash. My mother's attempted suicide. Met the love of my life before she became ill. Diagnosed with type 1 diabetes after COVID and gained weight. Started therapy. Found a great group of friends but have been distancing myself over the past 2 years after moving out of town to live with my girlfriend. Purchased my second apartment in cash, sharing the cost equally with my girlfriend. No debt. Currently suffering from burnout at work and gaining weight. Feeling less optimistic about the future due to war, the rat race, work, urban life, and feeling disconnected from nature. I felt happier before and am trying to figure out how to return to a healthier and happier state of mind. I believe I need to start taking care of myself again. Story 28. I was arrested for a crime I committed. Sitting in jail for 9 months will open your eyes. Story 29. Having my best friend, sobbing, asked me if he was going to hell because he was gay. That is what started my religious deconstruction. Story 30. I struggled with math in 8th grade. It was the only year and class in which I had to attend summer school. I met my now husband during summer school that year. Story 31. The Yellow Vest protests highlighted the issue of police brutality, with some individuals suffering severe injuries, such as a fractured skull. This was a significant eye-opener for those who may not be familiar with the oppression and violence present in capitalist states. Story 32. Coming out to my family changed how they treat me. I now have a strained relationship with limited contact. Story 33. I nearly faced a serious health issue due to my obesity. I am determined not to gain weight again and aim to reach my ideal weight. Story 34. When someone is done with you, there is no second chance or opportunity to fix things. The only thing they want is to never hear from you again, and they fully intend for nothing less. Story 35. 2 years ago, my best friend fell in love with the girl I loved. I am still not fully over it. Story 36. I took 8 hits of acid 30 minutes before dawn on a secluded part of the California coast. I woke up feeling disoriented. Story 37. I was getting an intravenous line inserted, but the nurse kept missing my vein. I passed out and imagined myself on the beach, walking my dog. I heard my mom's voice, even though she was actually at the hospital with me, and I thought, is my mom in heaven? This reminds me that we are all fragile and will die one day. Story 38. Having a first child and losing a father within a year profoundly impacts a person. After experiencing loss and pain, I find joy in raising a new life to greatness. Story 39. My lung collapsed and I found out that I have stage 4 sarcoidosis, which is the most severe form. I had it all along since my teenage years. After the initial collapse, I was thought to be well enough to be sent home, but not even 24 hours later, it fully collapsed again. In total, I was in the hospital for 12 to 13 weeks. Afterwards, the damage was extensive, and I developed complications like necrosis, which resulted in the loss of my right hip. I could no longer work, my social life was over, and basically, life as I knew it was gone. Story 40. Having children. Everyone always asks, now that you are married, when are the kids coming? What they don't tell you is how much your life will change after you have kids. My children are the best thing that ever happened to me, but my life is no longer my own. I live only for them now. Story 41. To be honest, none. Okay, maybe a breakup with an ex-girlfriend I really liked at 16. But then I was 16. It seems nothing out of the ordinary happened in my life. Either that or I am taking problems too lightly. Anyways, I feel blessed and scared that I won't have the resilience to handle significant changes in the future. Story 42. Traveling as much as possible is a great way to enhance your life. Planning a year in advance allows you to take advantage of low prices and gives you something to look forward to. Through travel, you learn so much about yourself and others. You realize that the world is both smaller and larger than you could ever imagine. If you only learn about the world from the internet, you might believe it is filled with inherently evil people. However, when you travel, you quickly discover that this is far from the truth. Yes, there may be bad experiences, but you can learn from them. Traveling doesn't have to mean going to a distant destination. I have faced many financial limitations, yet even a weekend in the nearest large city can provide a memorable experience on a budget. Story 43. After I was hit by a car, my worldview changed significantly. I realized that if the driver had decided to go 30 kilometers per hour faster at that moment, I would no longer be in this world. Before this incident, I worried about every little thing and meticulously planned each day for several months. Now, I understand that every day could be my last. This experience hasn't made me detached from reality. Instead, I recognize that life is short. There is no need to rush, and I adhere to the principle of living in the moment and taking action when I want something. Story 44. Honestly, I used to use MDMA on and off for a couple of years. I was very self-conscious and introverted, but it helped me realize what it felt like to let go of my inhibitions. Nothing was better than dancing at a music festival in the rain. Feeling like this was the only place on earth to be. I don't do any of that anymore, but the lessons I learned still apply. Story 45. I worked as a vacuum cleaner salesman, and it was a decent job. However, I heard some negative things about the company, so I quit. After leaving, I faced financial issues, and the company refused to assist me. When I researched them, I realized I had made a mistake. My finances deteriorated completely, and I became depressed. I still struggle with depression 20 years later. Story 46. I read Between Parent and Child by Dr. Chaim Jinnah. He was a brilliant and charismatic child psychologist. He explained that love is not enough when you have children. You need kind and compassionate communication skills to be a parent. He created congruent communication, which is a kind and respectful way of treating people. This man taught me how to parent my children and speak to myself and others. He was a genius. Anyone interested should watch his lectures. He is a wonderful parenting teacher. Story 47. Road tripping with my brother after we both graduated college in 2018 was an incredible experience. I convinced him to take the summer off and travel in my 2002 Chevy Cavalier, visiting numerous national parks across the country. It opened my eyes to how little we needed to get by while still having the time of our lives hiking together and living in a four-door sedan for several months. I understand the privilege we had to make that choice, but I would give anything to relive that trip. Young and limitless. Story 48. Being the emotional support for the woman I truly love only for her to blame me for everything when we broke up changed my perspective on being emotionally available to certain people. Story 49. I lost my beloved dad, my best friend of 40 years, my mom, and my oldest daughter in 1 year. I hate it here now. Story 50. Kissing a girl changed my perspective. Before that experience, I didn't understand why guys my age pursued relationships. They seemed pointless and exhausting. After making out in my car, I felt transformed. Story 51. Being broken up with and soon having a guy friend. I should have blocked her when she broke up with me. I kept thinking that even though we broke up, we were still friends. What a mistake I made. Story 52. I know this is not as haunting as the other experiences mentioned, but having my heart broken by a boy I never imagined would hurt me has been difficult. Honestly, at this point, I feel like I do not have the capacity to be in love anymore, almost like it's physically impossible. It pains me every day because I remember how hopeful and full of life I used to be. Story 53. My general practitioner looked me in the eye and told me, postpartum is very difficult. No one ever tells you the truth, and you will never reveal the real truth about it either. She prescribed me antidepressants, and my outlook is significantly brighter. Story 54. Driving 56 hours and 5,600 miles in 1 week to see a girl in Canada involved 2 round trips. I will never forget those drives and how disappointing that person turned out to be. Incredibly selfish. Story 55. The last relationship I had with an abusive man changed me forever. I am in a much better place now, but the damage will take a lifetime to undo. Story 56. My brother took his own life, which completely devastated our family. Our mother became an alcoholic. My sister began to resent everyone and everything, and my oldest brother started using drugs. I believe I am the only one who emerged from this situation somewhat intact. Story 57. Being hit by a drunk driver left me permanently disabled. He received a minimal penalty. I did not receive any compensation, and I became homeless. Story 58. I am currently losing an 8-year-old relationship with someone I took for granted. I have been traveling and met someone else who made everything feel better, only for them to disappear after I had the best days of my life with them. Now, I am not talking to anyone. It is painful to have something so beautiful and experience a wonderful time, only for it to slip away. It hurts. It really hurts. Story 59. Being in a coma due to high sodium recently has left me with severe amnesia of both types, unfortunately. Story 60. Being sexually abused as a child by a family member caused irreversible issues, especially regarding relationships. I trust no one, including myself. Story 61. My 2 friends and I experimented with LSD over a year ago. We got into a loop, repeating the same things and reliving the same moments. It would start with one of us whispering each other's names. Then one friend would jokingly call the other a pig, and it would escalate into phrases we had just said a few minutes earlier. What was surprising was that one friend wouldn't let us leave her room, convinced we would get caught if we did. She claimed she had experienced many different outcomes of what could happen and had seen strange interactions between us that never actually occurred. LSD really changes your perspective on the world, and I wouldn't recommend it if you have bad anxiety. Story 62. I was diagnosed with blood cancer at 27 years old, seemingly out of nowhere. This experience showed me my resilience and how my mind kept pushing forward during weeks of total isolation. I did experience a relapse, but oddly, it did not lead to a breakdown. The doctor had warned me that it could happen within 2 years of remission, so it wasn't a shock. I took a deep breath and thought, what are the next steps? I underwent a bone marrow transplant and had to work my way back to my baseline health, still in isolation. I allowed myself a brief moment of misery each day before redirecting my focus, asking myself, what episode of a mediocre show will I watch next? This distraction became my escape. I never took life for granted before this situation, But the excessive pressure some people place on themselves to achieve certain goals before turning 30 is absurd. Young people in their teens trying to hustle and make money every hour of every day. It's overwhelming just to think about. Slow down and take a moment to look around while you can. Story 63. I met someone who asked me an important question. That person is still special to me. I think of them multiple times every day, though I am sure they have forgotten about me. This question permanently changed my worldview. I believe this question needs to be discovered individually, so I will not share it. Story 64. Meditating for 10 minutes daily and reading books have both opened up sections of my brain and enhanced my perception of existence in ways I never knew were possible. Story 65. Being forgotten by my parents in the middle of nowhere in southern France while on holiday and sleeping in a ditch by the side of the road. Story 66. So many sad experiences. Here's a good one. Meeting my husband at 30 years old. I had never felt love or companionship before. I had always been down on myself and lonely, despite having good friends. I didn't think true love was real. I wasn't on a good path in life and don't know where I would be today if it wasn't for him. I met my husband and fell in love immediately. I knew he was my soulmate. The best part is he loves me even more. We moved to a different state, bought a house, and we have good jobs along with our 2 beautiful pets. We have been together for 12 years now, and life is perfect. Story 67. Watching from a window as 2 pit bulls jumped over a backyard fence. They ran straight across the street to my house, broke in through the kitchen screen door, and immediately attacked our 14-year-old golden retriever while he was napping under the table. They were feeding on him when my mom came home from her errand and found me sitting on the kitchen counter with my hands over my ears to block out the chewing noises. I was 7 years old and had to be treated for shock in the emergency room. I underwent post-traumatic stress disorder therapy into my late teens for it and still hear the sounds in my dreams occasionally. I've had anxiety ever since, and it significantly affected my social life in my youth. I would probably be a very different person today if not for that incident. Sleep well, old dog. It wasn't your fault. Story 68. A car wreck in 1984. We rolled down the embankment on an overpass. My grandfather went out of the front windshield. Completely changed my thinking as I grew up, and that day has had the biggest impact on who I am today. Story 69. Being told by women that I'm too nice has pushed me to adopt a persona of being unkind, which is quite sad but seems effective. No matter how much they claim to appreciate nice men, treating them poorly often yields a more positive long-term response than being nice in the short term. Story 70. When an ex-girlfriend transitioned from one intimate act to another immediately afterward, I found it surprising. She had a captivating figure and impressive oral skills. How can anyone else compare to that? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.